Tom's Cabin was one of the most powerful novels ever written in American history. Its author, Harriet Beecher Stowe, was an abolitionist born in Connecticut in 1811, the daughter of a liberal clergyman. She later married a minister opposed to slavery. Well, Uncle Tom's Cabin began as a weekly series in the national era in 1851. Well, Harriet planned to write no more than 3 or 4 episodes, but the readers demanded more of that dramatic tale. Well, what would become of Uncle Tom, the gentle slave who was sold to the evil plantation owner, Simon Legree? Well, the auctioneer announced his price, and Tom was made over. He had a master. He was pushed from the block. The short, bullet-headed man, seizing him roughly by the shoulder, pushed him to one side, saying in a harsh voice, "Stand there, you." Well, what was the future of beautiful Eliza, who fled to freedom by leaping from ice floats across the half-frozen Ohio with her child in her arms? Well, fan letters poured into the newspaper office, and by the time Stowe was finished, she had written 45 episodes. Well, 1 year later, in book form, it sold 1 million copies, priced at 37.5 cents each. Well, Northerners who had never visited the South or paid any attention were outraged by the horrors of slavery that Stowe described. Well, I dedicate this star to Harriet Beecher Stowe for her visual depiction of slavery. Now, this is the 4th block in our star sampler, or the 1st block in the 2nd row. Now, you can make a single block and turn it into a 1-block wall hanging, as this one made by Shirley Riley. Oh, it's beautiful in these colors. Or you can make 4 blocks and set it together with a mitered border, folded border, some little stars right here. Luann Stout designed this one. Well, the words of Harriet Beecher Stowe enlightened the whole world. Let me enlighten you with some easy sewing techniques. Proud to add Harriet Beecher Stowe to my gallery. Well, she's a star in my book. Now, these are the parts of her star. You start right here in the center with the pinwheel, and then right here are those flying geese patches that make up the points of the star. There's a little extra, some extra triangles right to the pinwheel. Now, you might remember some of those same parts in the Barbara Frecce star. Larger pinwheel center, flying geese patches, 4 sets of those around the outside edge. Well, since I already showed you that pinwheel center, I'm just going to fly right through it. It starts out with 2 pieces of fabric. Now, they are 3 1/4 by 6 1/2. And oh, how about 2 mediums, a blue and a red, right sides together. And all you want to do is draw on a squaring line and then those diagonal lines. And then just step on the gas and sew on both sides of those diagonal lines. We want to come up with 4 pieces that look like that. And of course, they're just a little oversized. Boy, not much to square up though. They should square up to about 2 3/4 inches. So just drop your 6 by 6, line up that diagonal line right there, and then just trim off, cut off those tails right there. Trim on 2 sides, turn it around, and then just finish it up at 2 3/4 inches. Let's see if I can get that perfect. Oh, great. Well, once those 4 pieces are squared up, then you just want to lay them out in a pinwheel shape. Oh, that's always the tricky part for me. I can never get it right. But lay out the pinwheel with that shape, and this piece is also a little oversized. It really needs to be squared up to 4 3/4 inches before you go on. So let me just drop that line. Oh my gosh, it's just like shaving. Just trimming off just a sliver on all 4 sides. And you want to make sure you have those seams right out to the point. Trim off right there. Then just drop that on there one more time. Ooh, it is so close right there. And that is it. for the pinwheel center. I told you I was going to go through that fast. Well, let me just push these things aside, get rid of them, because we don't need them. We have the one. Now, the triangles come from two different squares. You need to have a dark square that is 7 3/8 inches right here. These are going to make up the points of the star. So take that one square right here, cut it on the diagonal, and then the second one, actually on both diagonals, we want to do it on both diagonals. The second piece, the light background, is a 7 1/4, and just like the first one, we're going to cut it on both diagonals. And so actually the bias now, the bias stretch, is on the inside of the triangles. Now, these units are going to go right around that Harriet Beecher Stowe star. So let's see if we can just get that lined up right. Okay, take the pinwheel center, take one triangle, put it right here, and you see that you have a straight edge and a tip. You've got that tip hanging over right there. That's important. And then on the opposite side, straight edge you can line up, and then that tip. So just take this piece right here, flip it right sides together to it, line up the straight edges. And this is 1/4 inch again. Step on that gas right along there. Make sure you've got your tip hanging out at the bottom. Perfect right there. Now, once you have that one triangle on, all you have to do is just line that up with the second triangle, flip it right sides together, match up that square point, have that tip hanging over on that outside edge. Boy, those tips should always hang out about 1/4 inch to 3/8 inch. Add that to the opposite side. Make sure your seams are flat underneath. This is looking good. This is the whole center part of it. Now, once you have those triangles added, then all you need to do is just press it flat, pressing those seams towards the triangle. Get that on both sides. All right. Now, all we have to do is take those remaining triangles. We've got the 2 blue triangles, and this is the best part. Of the background triangles, 2 are extra. You can just take these, put those into another quilt, but take 2 background, 2 of the blue, line them up like this, and then just flip this piece right sides together onto the other one. You've got that square corner up here. You can line up, match up those opposite edges, and just step on the gas. Do some good old assembly line sewing. Well, you know, the Southern people sure thought Harriet was a real kook. My goodness, they thought she was fanatical. One preacher looked at her and he said, "Why, she is uglier than the original sin." Boy, that must be pretty ugly, huh? Well, they started all different kinds of things in the South. They weren't too happy about Harriet doing that story. Okay, now just go ahead and take and press those seams so that they lay behind the dark triangle. Get that all nice and flat. And then let's go ahead and see if we can just get this perfect in the center. Cut these apart, lay this out. Now, all we're going to do is just line it up like that, match this seam right here, take this piece and line it up so that we get this piece matched right there. Opposites, that's like the whole center of it. And how about a pin? Let's just see if we flip that right sides together. We can open this up, line that up, roll that in place. No chances here. Pin there. Let's just take this, get a pin right in there too. Wiggle that in place. Wiggle it so it matches in the end. Okay, we've got our tip hanging out. Looking good. Well, anyhow, they started all of these different kinds of things down in the South. Just to get back at Harriet Beecher Stowe, they actually had somebody author a book with a really unique name. It was called Uncle Robin in His Cabin in Virginia and Tom in Boston without one. Well, they said, look, you've got those free slaves up in New York. They're just working for starvation wages. Why, their homes aren't any nicer than the ones that we have our slaves living in down here. So it was quite an interesting title. Well, Harriet Beecher Stowe turned around and she wrote another book that gave some documentation for what she started, and it was called A Key to Uncle Tom's Cabin. I never did know about that book. That's a very interesting one. Let me pull that pin out so I can get that all lined up, matched. Just hold that in place and zip right down, match those opposite edges. Got that stiletto. That's really going to help. And that's it for the center. Let me just press this flat, and this time I'm going to go ahead and press it so that it's all pressed away from that center point like this. Looking good from both sides. Press it. Now, this piece, so it fits perfectly in the block, should measure 6.5 inches wide by 12.5 inches long. So you can go ahead and take your square up ruler, just line that right on there. And I think before I go on, what I'll do is just square this off right on one side, make that nice and even, and then I'm going to get my flying geese patches ready so I can go on. I flew right through these patches, and the best part is you only need to have 2 of them. Now they're squared up to 3.5 inches by 6.5 inches, and all you need are those 3.5 inch background corners. They're going to just get flipped right sides together and sewn on both sides. Oh, now we are getting into home stretch because this is the easy part. Just line up those corners, match them up right there. Then as soon as they're down one side, you can assembly line sew if you'd like and do that second one right behind it. I actually already did that one. Ooh, I am getting this done. And then just take it and sew it on the opposite side. Now once these squares are on both sides, then all you want to do, clip those threads, and you want to press these seams so that they go away from the geese, right from the top side, away from the geese. Got those seams all ready to go, and ooh, they're looking good. Right here I've got those 1/4 inch seams on the outside edge, and right here is the match point. Ooh, the tricky part right here. So I'm just going to flip this right sides together, and from the wrong side, you can see right where those stitches cross. So if you take a pin, put it right through there, and then underneath, let's see if I can fold this back because you want to take and push that pin right through that match point. And if you just push the pin, push the fabrics together, stand that pin up right there. And then a lot of times I like to just go ahead and pin right beside it so that you can keep that flat. But if you catch that pin, sometimes it distorts it. So let's just go ahead and do that. Get that ready. All right, last step. And then just line these outside edges up. Get that matched up right there. Hold on tight. Back stitch if you want to. And then just stitch right across there. You know, it was 9 years after Uncle Tom's Cabin came out that Lincoln called for soldiers. And you know, Harriet Beecher Stowe's son was in medical school at the time. He was in Harvard Medical School. And she didn't want him to go. Ooh, and as I get to that pin, I'm going to pull that out. Just like a mom, wouldn't you know? She didn't want him to go. And right in the middle of one of their violent arguments, I can just hear it, a young son with his mother. And he says, "Oh, Mom, I've got to go. I don't want them to say that Harriet Beecher Stowe's son is a coward." So he enlisted, of course. And what did she do? She packed him some oranges and set him off, just like a mom. I don't think moms change through the years, do they? Okay, so now when you flip that out, look at that. Is that looking good right there? Got that all matched perfect. Got your seam allowances on the outside edges. You can just press this flat and just square it up to 12.5 inches. And your block is ready to put into your sampler. To do this quilt, you need to make 4 blocks and sew them together. And then it's finished off with these small stars right in the corner. Has triangles on either side. This is a little folded border right around here. And then finishing off with mitered corners out to the outside edge. Oh, it's just great in patriotic colors, red, white, and blue. Ruth Griffith did that one. It's beautiful. Now that little star comes from squares. Of course it comes from squares, just little ones. 3 1/4 inch in the light and in the blue. And you're just going to put these pieces right sides together and draw on a diagonal line. Both sides, 2 diagonals. And then this is the technique that I showed you on one of the other blocks. You go down one side, across the middle, down the other side. And then, before you cut it apart, you do the same thing. Once again, down the left, across the middle, and across the right, so that you've actually sewn on both sides of that diagonal line. Now, whenever you do this and you cut them apart, then you have pieces that are identical. Let's see if I can just go ahead and cut these apart right here. And then when you open them up, this is what you have. You're going to have 4 of them, just like that. And then take a red square. This is 3 inches square, and just cut it once on the diagonal, and then this is what you pair it up with. So you've gotten that piece. Now it's definitely oversized, because you can see this is just a little 2-inch square that you're going to use to sew that block together. Now once you take those blocks and sew them together into that little star, very similar to what we just did, because you're going to take triangles. They come from 5.5-inch squares, cut once on the diagonal, and all you want to do, let me get that lined up. Oh, there we go. So that you actually sew one triangle on one side, then in the other, and you create that straight line. Well, now it's starting to look like something. So get that all sewn together. Let me just pick these up out of here. We've got another one all set. Now, those borders start out with 4.5-inch wide strips, and you want to put a little folded border on there first. And the folded border is a 1.5-inch strip that you just take, fold wrong sides together, and sew it right on there with an 1/8-inch seam. Well, we are just about ready to get into this. Now, take this piece right here and line it up on your strip approximately 7.5 inches down. Let's see, how about let's line that up, count down 2, 4, 6, 7. Oh, all right. On the grid, right sides together, and then take a pin, because we want to start sewing 1/4 inch down. Remember, we're doing that miter, so it's always going to be a 1/4 inch extra right there. So line that up and just drop your pin so that it starts 1/4 inch away. Keep those seams flat. Put that on there. Actually, I love that star so much, I went and did the same star for my vest. That's known as the Judy star, or also Wendy Gilbert used that star in Stars for All Seasons. It's great. Okay, we've got that 1/4 inch opened right there. That's perfect. Now, when you open this up, you want to take and push the background in towards the star and fold this folded border out. We've got one going in, one going out. Let me just go ahead and press this flat right there, get that lined up, and that folded border is just loose right in there. Ooh, perfect, right along. Okay, now, need to have the 45-degree line on the ruler. Now this is going to be a challenge, just to figure out how to trim this off on the miter. Here's the 45-degree line. What we want to do is trim this off so that this is on the 45-degree. Let's flip this over like that. All right. There we go. We've got this straight along here. Line up the 45 right with that strip, and then just take your rotary cutter and cut this away. Okay. The opposite end of this strip goes on the other side. And just do exactly the same thing. Fold this back out of the way right here. Take this and line it up 7 inches down from the top. Let me see if I can get that lined up. Oh, must be 7 inches right there. And you're going to, once again, start sewing at a 1/4 inch in and sew that right along there. Well, got one hiding right under here. Already did that sewing. So I want to show you the last step right here. Now, that's all pushed back, folded border out, background behind it. And this piece right here becomes a miter. So let's just take this and fold it right sides together and line that up so that you can draw a diagonal line going right down through here. Let's put a dot right here. That's 1/4 inch right off the tip. Take the 45-degree line on the ruler and line it up so that the 45-degree line is along here and right at this dot. Let's see if I can get that perfect. Just draw a line right along there. All right, that's what I'm going to sew on. Keep that 1/4 inch nice and free so that I can open up that miter. Okay, now people like to go different ways. Depends how you like to sew. Do you like to go from the outside edge in or the inside edge out? Well, whatever. You want to sew right on that line. Get that lined up. Zoom right in here. Well, you know, I think when I was growing up, I only got in trouble once in school. Only once. Do you believe that? And that was when my teacher was reading Uncle Tom's Cabin. Oh, I love that story. But I had homework that I had to get done. And so when I ripped out my tablet right in the middle of Uncle Tom's Cabin, everybody in the whole class stopped and looked up at me. Okay, so that's what the corner looks like. You've got the miter right there. And this piece right here, all you need to do is just lay that once again. Take your 45-degree line on your ruler, line it up with that straight edge along there, and trim that out. And then the back part, we'll trim that away in just a second. And then to finish the quilt, all you need to do is take the 4 blocks that have already been sewn together, sew it on 2 opposite sides, and then on the 2 opposite sides again, press it. You'll have a great looking quilt. If you visited Uncle Tom's Cabin at night, chances were good that a quilting was going on. Well, it was allowed only after all the chores were done. Well, slave women often traded sleep for quilting, staying up all night in a dimly lit cabin, enjoying their craft, just so they would be back in the fields at sunup. Well, sound familiar? Some things just never change. Well, one little girl reported she stayed up all night holding the lamp for her mammy. Well, perhaps this is a quilt that was made for a slave's personal use. Now, the stars are made from strings of fabric and stripes and checks and scraps from clothing or leftovers from the Mrs. Quilt. Well, the colors in the squares are still so vibrant. Ooh, the slaves learned how to use plant dyes expertly. Now, perhaps the yellow is from cedar moss, and red, a favorite color, was made from cherry, elm, and red oak. And turkey red dye could also be bought at the dry goods store. Well, this pattern is also known as Lemoyne Star, representing the crest of the founder of New Orleans. Well, it's little wonder that it was changed simply to Lemon Star. Well, the technique is easy to do. All you need to have is a kaleidoscope ruler. Then take a piece of newspaper. The original ones were done on newspaper. And then just line that up on the fold. Now, the height of this triangle is 2.5 inches. Once you cut your triangle and open it up, then you have your diamond. Next, all you need are just some strings and some scraps. The first one goes right side up. The second goes right sides to it, and then you just stitch right through the newspaper. Ooh, it's great fun. And then just trim it away to match the diamond. Now, the corners of the block come from a square that is the length of the diamond. This particular one is 2 3/4 inches. And then the triangles that fit into the block are just a 1/4 inch larger. This particular one was a 3-inch square that was just cut once on the diagonal. And then you can see you sew the diamonds together and insert the squares and the triangles. Oh, it's great fun. And you can use this technique for any size star. Now, slave quilts are hard to trace because they simply were used up and fell apart, were left behind in the flight to freedom. Slaves also made quilts for the mistress of the house. Now, these quilts were used to increase the value of their estate. A large number of quilts indicated the owners were wealthy, with money to purchase slaves to do the work, plus buy expensive imported textiles. Wherever you quilt, in a cabin or in a mansion, get someone to hold the light and remember Harriet Beecher Stowe as you quilt your star.